You are sitting quietly, reading maybe, or just thinking, with your hands around a cup of tea. And at some point, you are not sure exactly when, you become aware of it, a stillness near your feet, a presence that is patient and completely unhurried. You lower your gaze, and there it is, your dog, looking directly into your eyes, not asking for anything obvious, not restless, just looking. Most people look back, hold it for a moment, and feel something they cannot quite name, something warm, something that feels almost like being known. What is actually happening in that moment is far more precise than a feeling. In the next few minutes, we are going to look at what that gaze actually is, biologically, neurologically, and in terms of what it took to make it possible. There is one specific piece of research I want you to stay for. A team of scientists in Japan discovered that when your dog looks into your eyes, a measurable biological process begins. One that does not occur in wolves, does not occur with strangers, and appears to have been built specifically for this moment between you and your dog. It changes what the stare means entirely. We will get to it. But first, the explanation that feels right and stops short. Ask most people what it means when a dog stares at them, and the answer comes in one of two forms. Either it is affection, the dog loves you and is showing it, or it is a request. The dog wants something and is using its eyes to ask. Neither of these is wrong. But both of them miss the more fundamental thing underneath, because wolves, the ancestors of every dog alive today, do not do this. Wolves interpret direct eye contact as a threat. It is a dominant signal, a challenge. When a wolf meets your gaze, it holds it briefly and looks away, or it escalates. It does not settle at your feet and simply look at you with something that resembles peace. The domestic dog does something that has no equivalent in any wild canid. It seeks your eyes, willingly, repeatedly, with apparent comfort. That shift did not happen by accident, and it did not happen quickly. It was built across thousands of years of living alongside us. And the mechanism behind it is written into your dog's body. In 2015, neuroscientist Miho Nagasawa and her colleagues at Azabu University in Japan published a study in the journal Science that revealed something specific about what happens when dogs and their owners simply look at each other. They measured oxytocin, a hormone involved in social bonding, the same one that surges between a mother and newborn child, in both the dogs and their owners before and after an interaction. What they found was this. When a dog gazed at their owner, oxytocin levels rose in the owner. That rise in the owner then increased their warmth and engagement toward the dog, which in turn caused oxytocin levels to rise in the dog. A loop, a closed biochemical loop running between two different species, triggered by eye contact alone. Oxytocin levels increased by more than 20% in pairs who held a long gaze. The longer the eye contact, the stronger the effect. Then the researchers did something that made the finding sharper. They gave a separate group of dogs an intranasal spray of oxytocin before placing them in a room with both strangers and their own owner. Without fail, the dogs with boosted oxytocin levels gazed longer at their own human and ignored the strangers entirely. The hormone did not just change how the dog felt, it directed the dog's gaze specifically toward the person it was bonded to. The researchers did not find the same response in hand-raised wolves. Wolves rarely held a gaze with their human handlers for more than a few moments, because wolves tend to use eye contact as a threat, not as a form of social communication. The gaze and the loop it triggers belongs to dogs alone. It appears to have developed during domestication, meaning the dogs that were better at initiating and sustaining this exchange were the ones that received more warmth, more food, more care, the ones that survived. Those soulful eyes are not simply expressive, they are chemically binding you two together. Here is what makes this even more considered. It is not just the gaze itself that changed during domestication. The anatomy that produces it changed too. Researchers have discovered two specialized facial muscles in dogs that are either absent or barely developed in wolves. One of them, a small muscle running along the inner edge of the eyebrow, allows dogs to lift the inner brow, making their eyes appear larger and more rounded. The movement creates a look that closely resembles the expression humans associate with sadness or vulnerability. the kind of expression that triggers a caregiving response. Dogs use these facial expressions far more when a human is looking at them than when no one is watching. They are not doing it blindly, they are doing it in response to your attention. What this means is that your dog's face was, slowly, across generations, shaped toward yours. The muscles that make their eyes look the way they do when they gaze at you did not exist in the same form in the animal that preceded them. They were selected because they worked, because the dogs that could produce that expression were looked after, were chosen, were kept. Step back for a moment and consider what this actually means. Your dog is not simply an animal that has learned to live near humans. Dogs are more skilled at reading and using human communication cues, including gaze direction and pointing gestures, than chimpanzees, our closest living primate relative, and more than wolves, their own closest relative. No other species on Earth sits in that position. The eye contact is part of that. Dogs establish eye contact with humans when they cannot solve a problem on their own. Wolves do not. For a dog, your eyes are information. They are orientation. They are the place the dog turns when the world becomes uncertain. When your dog looks at you, it is not performing affection. It is running a system that was refined across tens of thousands of years precisely because looking at you, really looking, holding the gaze, was the most effective thing a dog could do to remain close to a human, to be cared for, to survive. The look is ancient. The chemistry it triggers is real. And neither of those things started with your dog. Now, the part worth paying attention to. A sudden change in how your dog makes eye contact is worth noticing. A dog that has always been a steady gazer and begins avoiding your eyes, turning away, refusing to hold contact, seeming to look through you rather than at you, maybe in discomfort. Pain in its early stages often appears in social behavior before it appears anywhere obvious. A dog that is not feeling well frequently withdraws from the very interactions it would normally seek. Equally, if an older dog begins staring with unusual intensity, following you with their eyes in a way that feels searching or anxious rather than calm, it can be an early sign that something has shifted neurologically. Increased or altered gazing behavior in dogs over the age of 7 with no obvious change in environment or routine is worth raising with your veterinarian. Your dog's eyes are communicating something even when you are not sure what. A shift in that pattern is always worth taking seriously. So the next time your dog settles near you and raises their eyes to yours, you know what is happening. A body producing chemistry that was designed for exactly this exchange. A face that was shaped, muscle by muscle, across thousands of years to meet yours in a way that would make you feel something. A creature whose entire social evolution pointed it toward your eyes as the most important thing in the room. It is not affection in the simple sense. It is not a request or a habit or a coincidence. It is what it looks like when one species spent 10,000 years learning to speak the only language another species could not ignore. Your dog found it. And every time they look at you, they are using it. Before you go, notice the next time your dog holds your gaze. Notice how long they hold it. Notice whether you look away first. Tell me in the comments whether your dog is a steady gazer or whether they glance and look away. And whether knowing what is actually happening changes anything about how that moment feels. And if you want to understand what is actually happening when your dog licks your face, what that behavior is measuring, and what it is trying to say, that video is already waiting for you.